Notice how the folks screaming the loudest about community are usually the ones who've never swung a hammer or planted so much as a petunia. Yeah, that's how you end up one fine Colorado morning staring down the barrel of a war you never asked for just because some HOA queen with a power complex decided your land should be hers. I didn't move out here for drama. I moved for peace. But peace, it turns out, is a dangerous thing to show off. There's always someone who'll come knocking to take a piece. I built this cabin with my own 2 hands, 10 years every weekend, every leave I could steal, every bit of sweat wrung out of old work shirts and stubborn pride. You hear people say building a home changes you. I'd go further. It marks you. The bones of this place are deadfall pine beams cut and set when my back was stronger stones from the ridge dragged one at a time until my hands bled. There were days I thought I was plain crazy out here by Briar Creek Lake with nothing but wind and sawdust for company. But I'll tell you, being a little crazy is just a sign you're still alive. When I first got the land gift from my uncle, rest his soul, it was wild Colorado. Nothing but brush pines and the odd critter. Folks back in town said I was off my rocker. Living like a mountain ghost, they joked. After 2 tours and too many years patching up blown-out structures for someone else's war, I wanted something nobody could take. No mortgage, no liens, no neighbors' wind chimes, and for damn sure no HOA newsletters wedged under my door. This was mine. You know what I mean? Really mine. By the time I set the last shingle, it was my birthday. No cake, just a roof keeping the rain off. When the inspector signed off, he laughed and said my place would outlast most of the prefab palaces across the lake. I believed him. Hell, I still do. I put up cameras out of old habit, not paranoia, just a vet's reflex and 3 signs: private property, no trespassing, not part of any HOA. Should have been enough, right? Shows what I knew. 2 days after I moved in, the cavalry arrived. Or at least 3 people with clipboards walking up my gravel like they owned it. The ringleader, Karen, of course, because what else do you call a woman in a beige suit with a bob so sharp it could cut glass? Didn't even try for small talk. She tells me she's president of the Lakewood Garden Hills HOA and wants to review my architectural compliance documentation. Honest to God, I almost laughed. I told her straight, this isn't your jurisdiction. Briar Ridge, unincorporated private parcel. I've got the tax receipts, the county permit, and 15 years worth of proof this land's mine. She didn't like that. Didn't expect pushback, I guess. Said something about visual compliance since her people could see my cabin from across the water. She figured she had a say in what I painted my deck. Can you imagine, next thing they'll be fining me for thinking the wrong thoughts? When I pointed out the sign, not part of any HOA, she just sniffed. Told me signs don't change legal status and suggested I submit to enforcement measures. I told her she and her clipboard had exactly 60 seconds to clear out before I started treating it as trespass. She left, but not before firing a death glare that would wilt a houseplant. For a minute I thought maybe it was over. That's hope for you. Next came the letter, fancy envelope, gold seal, and all caps legalese. Claimed I owed the HOA $100 a day in fines backdated to the day I laid the foundation. They didn't even have my address right. Pulled it off Zillow, probably. I sent it to Jenna, my attorney, a woman I trust, because I watched her scare the hell out of a colonel back in Iraq. Jenna read the letter and laughed. HOA voodoo, she called it. She put together a rebuttal thicker than a city phone book and sent it to Karen's headquarters, which turned out to be her garage. Karen wasn't amused. She tried a new angle, claimed her dad had a verbal agreement with my uncle. Said the land was always meant for her son Zachary. I nearly spit out my coffee. A verbal agreement from a man dead since 2007, supposedly discussed at a Chamber of Commerce mixer. No paperwork, no notary, just intent. Lady, I told her, you're not the community. You're a bored retiree with a Napoleon complex. That was the last polite word I managed. Jenna hit her with a cease and desist. Any more threats, any more fake documents, and we'd treat it as harassment. They didn't stop. Next thing I knew, community votes started popping up, flyers stapled to poles, Facebook posts calling for the recapture of lakeside lots to preserve community character. I even got eviction notices, fake official grammar so bad it was almost art. One of the neighbor kids handed me a flyer and apologized. I felt bad for the kid. He didn't sign up for this. Every threat, every letter, every meeting, I documented it. Photos, timestamps, camera footage. I kept my cool even when rumor poison started seeping into the feed store and the cafe. You ever notice how fast a story gets legs when it's got just enough truth to stick, but just enough lie to hurt? That's what they were playing at, build a truth out of noise, then hope I cracked under the pressure. Didn't work. Jenna and I filed a lawsuit. We had documentation deeds, camera logs, copies of every fake notice, a side-by-side of my uncle's real signature, and the chicken scratch forgery Karen tried to pass off. We named everyone the HOA Karen and any unidentified parties. It got ugly. Karen countersued, brought up her father's vision, even dragged her son Zachary into it, which as it turned out was a mistake. Zach. Let's just say the apple didn't fall far from the fraud tree. Credit card fraud, identity theft, squatting fake tree houses. Jenna called him a clown in the circus. I hired a private investigator. Turned out the HOA's own emails were full of gems, Karen bragging about how they'd make me crack, how the land was ours in spirit, and that facts wouldn't matter if they controlled the tone. They stepped up the harassment, planted fake, unsafe structure signs. Zach got caught on camera, hammer in hand, flipping me off as he left. I called the sheriff, filed a report. Karen tried to file a counter-complaint, said I threatened community oversight officers. The sheriff shut her down after watching the footage. Then a neighbor I barely knew, Marcia, showed up at my gate. Quiet woman, always wore gardening gloves. She handed me coffee in an envelope. I'm not getting involved, she said, but I thought you should see this. Internal HOA newsletters. Plans to enter my land, assess environmental impact, document code violations on reclaimed land. Reclaimed like I was a damn ruin they were restoring. I thanked her. Not all heroes wear badges. Jenna filed for an injunction. At the same time, our investigator found a detail even I'd forgotten: the land had been registered as a conservation parcel back in '99. Double locked, double mine. When the court date came, we had enough evidence to fill a pickup. The hearing was everything you'd hope for if you've ever been steamrolled by bureaucrats. Jenna laid out the deeds, the maps, the camera footage. Karen's lawyer tried the old verbal promise gambit, got shut down cold. The forged document. We called up a handwriting expert, and Jenna revealed the document had been created on a laptop from 2021, 14 years after my uncle passed. The judge didn't need long. Full rights affirmed to me. HOA's claims fraudulent. Karen personally liable for trespass, defamation, coercion. And the judge ordered an audit of the HOA's finances. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in months. Jenna clapped me on the back, said I'd just made case law. The next morning, the silence on my porch was real. No more threats, no more flyers, just the wind in the pines, the lake tapping at the rocks. Karen got 6 months in county for fraud and forgery. Her mugshot even made the paper. The HOA fell apart. Members quit, called for dissolution. The new treasurer apologized publicly for every target Karen had picked on. And me. 3 days after the verdict, neighbors I barely knew showed up with tools, lumber, and beer. Heard you might want a new dock, one said. Figured you'd earn some help. We built together deck, solar panels, a gravel path to a dock. The land felt clean again. Mine again. I hung a sign by the gate, 10 years by hand. No son of Karen shall pass. You know what? That sign went viral. Someone used my case to stop their own HOA from grabbing their family orchard. I didn't reply. Didn't have to. It was enough knowing I'd drawn a line that stood. Zach. Last. I heard he skipped town. Lost his car, wound up working ski rentals. Don't wish him ill, but maybe now he'll learn what it means to build something yourself. As for me, I keep building. Not for defense, just for peace. These days, the only folks up my road are the ones I invite. That's the way it ought to be. But let me ask you, where's the line between community and plain old control? How far should a group get to reach into someone's life, their land, their home? I've had my war. Now I want to hear about yours. Ever tangled with an HOA, a bully in a suit, or a neighbor who thought your property was theirs for the taking? Tell me your story. Let's see where folks really draw the line.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.